Good evening. This video is going to be something a little bit different. Now that I've gone and completed Furi, I thought it would be kind of fun to go through and check out the practice mode, considering that the better you do against opponents, the more artwork becomes unlocked for each character, bosses in specific. So I decided to go ahead and give this a shot, and this is going to be a compilation of those 10 attempts. In a way, it's also cathartic seeing these bosses just get their butts absolutely whooped, considering the amount of pain that they put me through. So that's going to be the purpose of this video, so more or less just sit back and enjoy, and as the video goes on, I'll just kind of mention my thoughts on the game and everything else. If you've followed me this far, then I won't be spoiling anything. So, this guy, the Chain, is his name. He obviously wasn't meant to be a serious challenge. He definitely did a good job of introducing you to all the mechanics that you would be using in one way or another throughout the game itself. When you were in story mode, the first few phases, he would just wait for you or do the same attacks over and over, very slowly, if you will, just to kind of help you get a feel for how to dodge, how to parry, how to attack, how to shoot. He didn't teach you everything. Only when going back through and doing these runs, these practice runs with the bosses, I actually started to learn a few things that, had I had known when I was actually trying to beat the bosses the first time, it would have made life so much easier. Like the fact that you are able to deflect bullets, or parry bullets. I only figured out that you could do some of those during the last fight against the Star. And upon trying it with other bosses, did I find that, wow, just simply deflecting these things would have been so much easier as opposed to dodging. So I don't feel that the Chain necessarily made the tutorial complete. A lot of things you really did have to figure out on your own, or, you know, if you looked at a guide, I'm sure they would have told you the same things. This is going to be a little strange. I didn't actually beat the bosses in order. I kind of cherry-picked at first, trying to figure out what I think would have given me less trouble, if you will, as opposed to other bosses. So the ones I thought were easiest, I did first, and I figured, why not go to the guy that started it all? What you'll be seeing is basically a difference in skill level because of this. I think I did this one first, followed by the Star. I spent so much time on the Star trying to get the patterns down. I was pretty confident that I could take those skills in and just get an S rank knocked out. Afterwards, I decided to do the Beat, and it's a short fight, short and sweet. I think it was the Edge afterwards, the samurai guy. He's also a fairly short fight, and he's very technical. And getting his pattern down wasn't too burdensome. And there goes the first guy. Simple as that. The strap. This was a fight that took me a while to figure out. At least a good way to do it. At first I thought, when going through, that the strap would just randomly attack the floor or just lose her mind on certain things. It was only after actually paying attention to what was going on in the environment could I realize that I could bait her into certain traps. So, you'll see these glowing things on the floor and around the center of the arena, and if you step on them, they make a noise which makes the strap very, very angry. And she will try to kill it with her face. Like I accidentally touched that one there. You saw she tried to go attack it. So there's also little noisemakers, speakers on some of the pillars as well, and if you attack them, they also make a noise, and she loses her mind and just goes running straight forward. This is something that the game doesn't explicitly tell you. It kind of encourages you to pay attention to what your environment is and just how you and the enemies react in it. Alright, well I guess I messed that one up. So let's do that again. Should have cut that out. Oh well, I missed it. No problems. Anyway, the strap. I think design-wise, the strap was my favorite boss. She had some really cool things going for her. Just the whole unicycle, and I mean, she almost doesn't look human in a way. She's like part machine, part flesh. I mean, if that's a mask, it looks like a very painful mask. Certainly would be difficult to see unless if there was some sort of cameras in the front of it, or some kind of vision holes that I'm not seeing. Maybe the strap is completely blind. I don't know. Overall, I found her extremely intriguing, and the fact that she was just kind of a tortured jailer for you was a lot of fun. She was just as much prisoner in this as you. Definitely a sad story on her part. Her being the second boss, I still remember how freaked out I was when she pulled that scythe out. Decided to introduce me to the business end of it. I didn't even know she had one. That's the other reason why I really like this boss, is that she undergoes phases in a more physical way than a lot of the other bosses do. Actually, if I look back on it, I can't necessarily think of any other boss that goes through so many physical changes as the strap does. I mean, first she's attached to her unicycle scooter thing, and as the fight goes on, she eventually breaks herself out and completely changes her mobility, and it's just fun. This is just a great fight overall. Definitely one of my favorites. That's sword charge right there. Another thing that I didn't realize I could do. I'm trying to remember when I first learned of it. I'm pretty sure it was after I beat the game. That's another thing that really could have helped out. And to do that, you actually, if you're using a controller like I am, you would press on the right stick. And that's not something that was explicitly shown to you. This part took an embarrassingly long amount of time for me to figure out how to avoid getting hit by her here, and the answer is you keep some of those, you keep a noisemaker available. Like you see, she just goes tearing off right there, trying to get it. And so naturally, I take full advantage of this. Here, I kept as many of these around as possible just to keep her away from me. Free pot shots, if you will. I think I get hit by this, which was embarrassing. No, I didn't. Okay. Look at that. That's half her health gone. You just can't compete with that kind of damage. Out of all of the desperation last stand tactics, I found hers the easiest to manage. The line, the diaper-wearing old man.
You live under the illusion of control.
I found this fight very frustrating. It's definitely a methodical fight that you can't really rush. You have to take your time, especially during this beginning carousel of walls that you have to deal with. It's extremely easy to get overwhelmed with your own projectiles if you're not careful. And frankly, I'm still not comfortable doing this consistently. Like, that was actually one of the few times I got through the carousel part with relatively little issue. The first time I learned I could actually deflect those bullets was huge for me. I used to try and dash through them. I mean, if you look at the first time I came across this guy in the third video, it was just a total cluster. Took a lot longer for me to figure that one out than it should have. Again, only after beating the game. Or close to beating the game.
A crack in the shell. But can you find it twice?
Otherwise, you know, I actually really liked this fight. This was a lot of fun. he taught you that you can't always rely on your energy pistol. You trying to use it, especially in these parts where time is still, is just adding more and more projectiles that you have to dodge potentially. And that's definitely the theme throughout most of this fight is the more you use your energy gun, the worse it's going to be for you. So just make sure that you get the hits in that you need, and as few hits as possible. Even though I do find this fight to be tedious to a degree, it is still definitely one of my favorites of the game. The music in it is just top-notch. It reminds me a lot of Shatter, the soundtrack to Shatter, which was done by Module, I think.
Prepare to meet. Breathe in. Focus. Let's bring an end to this. Seek joy in these last precious moments. Rewind.
Scale. Or, as Taco Chan called it, Sewer Man or Fallout Man. Of all the enemies, I felt like this one was more filler than anything else. And I can't necessarily put my finger on why I feel that way. But he just felt kind of out of place for some reason. Not as much as the star, mind you. The star was just a completely just curveball. We're not talking about the star right now. We're talking about Fallout Man. Scale. This fight was very easy to figure out. For the most part, he follows the same pattern until you get at least to the melee phase. Here, the melee phase gave me a bit of trouble. Closing the distance and just trying to get out of his AoE attacks sometimes or frequently proved to be extremely difficult, at least for me. I managed to get something out of him that I was happy with. But during these phases here, like, he's going to kick, and then he's going to do a shock wave and then 3 waves toward you. And he'll do this about 3 times. Sometimes he might change it up depending on his health. Okay, in this case he's going to jump and attack like so. What I really like about this fight is that if you're fast enough and if you put the pressure on strong enough, you can actually bypass phases, like, well, not necessarily phases entirely, but parts of the phase. Like this right here, if I was a little more aggressive, I could have just completely skipped it if I just put the pressure on him just a little bit harder. There's a part where he'll split, or he'll make clones of himself. It's like 6 clones during the next phase and the second to last phase. If you can put enough pressure on him, you don't even have to mess with it. It's a wonderful feeling, just knowing you don't have to put up with any of it. It can be very difficult to dodge, so if you're aggressive enough with this guy, he becomes easier in a way. I would still like to know how I'm able to do the Jesus walk. Especially considering that at the end credits, when you're walking on Earth, you come across a river, and your character, the traveler, the rider, sorry, he's not able to cross it, but yet he can walk on this stuff no problem. It could just be a viscosity difference. I'm not sure. Knowing what I know now about the origins of the rider, I am genuinely curious what it was that corrupted him. What did I do specifically, or what did the arrival of this alien species do to make him go crazy and wear a Mega Man suit, if you will? I just don't know.
I'll undo you.
Out of all the desperation attacks, I think this one is probably my favorite. It was a little tricky to learn, but once you figured it out, it was simple enough. And it's still, it's still screwing me up here. I've gone through this without getting hit once, but, other parts aren't satisfactory enough. Pardon the mess up there with the wording. I don't know. I'm conflicted about this fight. It's a good one. It just doesn't feel necessary, though. Apparently, he's just made of all spines. Plus, I'm digging the afro in the lower right-hand corner over there. How does he hold a comb? I'm assuming he can get out of his suit, but I'm not entirely sure.
I brought you to your knees once already.
The hand.
I will do so again.
Of all the bosses, this one was the easiest for me to S rank, which I found amusing because he was also one of the hardest, or the one that gave me the most trouble in the beginning. Definitely. He serves as kind of a wake-up call, in my opinion. He also discourages you from using your gun. That shield of his is a nasty piece of work, and it can reflect your projectiles in pretty terrible ways if you're not careful.
I brought you to your knees once already, and I will do so again.
Now, it's about here as well when you're starting to realize that something really strange is going on. Like, people are taking it very personally, your reasonings for being locked up. And I've got to admit, I'm a little ashamed that I didn't catch a lot of the story just because I was so focused on what the next fight was going to be and how I was going to put up with it, get through it. A lot of the questions that I have were already answered. I just couldn't see it at the time. Revisiting all this and being able to replay these fights and see the story cutscenes again, they made me really feel kind of silly for missing as much as I actually did. Like, for example, the Bunny Man. I don't actually think he killed anybody. After the song is finished, which is the next fight, there's a cutscene showing you where you go into the next room and your friend, the voice, which is his name according to the credits, I'm assuming that's him. He tells you that he ended up killing the next, jailer because, hey, he wants to contribute. I'm thinking it's possible that he was the jailer, considering that he knows everybody else. I mean, at first I thought he was a figment of my imagination, but he just knew too much about the other people, what their likes and dislikes are, their personalities. But if he was a jailer, well, it starts to make more sense. Not only that, but when you're going through the practice menu, this guy's number 5 on the list. The song is number 6. And then the next person you fight, who is the Burst, is number 8. Number 7 skipped entirely, because technically number 7 died at the hands of the voice. Or more like the voice just was like, nah man, it's fine. I'm not going to fight you, I'm going to help you escape instead. But I have a question about that. If the jailers are the key, and the only way to get to the next area is to kill a jailer, how was I able to continue onwards?
You have nothing to protect. Nothing.
You could say that since there's a good chance that the voice is the one that made the place, especially considering what he was saying in the cutscene there during that 7th boss room. That he would know a different way out, but if that was the case, why would he have me kill all these jailers? Why not just let me go out the back doors?
I will never give up, stranger. The stakes are too high.
Regardless, that's probably what's going on there. So, one of the jailers defected and let me out. For his daughter.
Surrender.
But if he knew what I was capable of, if he knew that I could herald the end of his world,
You're alone.
why would he let me out and potentially endanger his child's world? So, coming back to this fight, the hand, I was really enamored with this last part here. Just him doing everything he can to try and break you, and yet it's just not enough. He's fighting for his boy after all, trying to fight and make sure that Earth will be safe from me, specifically, or what I can bring. I find it kind of depressing that he brought his kid on hand with him, in which case, why didn't the Bunny Man do the same thing for his daughter? Or was it because he realized that there was no going back? And that if he puts his daughter on these islands, that there's no way for her to ever see Earth again. Anyway, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with what the voice's motives are, but I guess if he didn't, there wouldn't be a game now, would there? So, moving on. The song. If the hand was more or less just a close-up fight, the song is definitely the opposite of it. She really doesn't want you to get into her personal space. And as such, you know, the pistol's the way to go. I was a little disappointed to see the Strap's laser beam make its way into this fight.
What more could you possibly ask of me?
And this is something that will show up in other fights as well. Specifically, the Beat and the Star. They also use this giant laser beam attack. Not necessarily saying I could have done better, but by losing that, the only real unique thing that the Strap has now is her scythe, and the fact that she can run like a total freak at you.
You don't realize how much I sacrificed to bring you this.
Most other bosses, though, they have a unique projectile of some kind. Like, you look at the hand, and he has that shield that can just reflect things back at you. Kind of similar to how the line does it, but not at the same time. It's a little bit different. It feels like a much more offensive tool. This lady, she has all sorts of fun stuff. She has a lot of interesting projectile patterns that nobody else has. She should have left the laser beam to the Strap.
You're hurting me so much. You will stop at nothing, right? Is your escape worth so much suffering? So many deaths? I'm here to protect all that I believe in. You must listen to reason. There's no other way. I curse you for making us go through this. You are so blind, so arrogant.
During the last cutscene in this area, you actually see the writer hesitate before delivering the killing blow on the song. It makes more sense now that, from the voice's perspective, the Bunny Man, he showed hope, in a way, by saying, oh wow, you know, you hesitated, and maybe you won't destroy the world after all. Of course, you know, all that flew right over my head. So, the burst. This fight is, in my opinion, the most difficult one in the entire game. Where most other bosses have some sort of pattern, this lady has less of a structure, if you will. She kind of does whatever she wants. So she's unpredictable to a degree, and she is just a total pain in the ass to try and catch. Her little battle bots that go out with her, her little nanobot things, are absolutely annoying. And overall, this fight just took a long time to figure out. When going through it, though, one thing I did learn is that it seems like no matter where the burst is on the map, if you parry, your character will always face the direction of where she's going. That helps cut down dramatically on just trying to find her in the first place. It actually made this fight feel a little bit different overall. Anyway, this lady, she's just a pain in the ass, all around. Still a great fight, but dang, she's annoying.
I like the way you take me out of my comfort zone.
Now, while you weren't necessarily sure of what it is you did, the cutscene leading up to this fight should have made you think not necessarily of what you did, but simply who or what you are. I was so taken aback by the fact that the writer has a BPM of 7 while resting
That's okay.
that I completely missed the part where this lady's scanner told me that the writer's DNA was unknown.
No one said we had to play fair.
Absolutely huge giveaway. A lot of humongous giveaways that you're not necessarily human in this game. And I was oblivious to all of them until the game more or less forced me to accept the fact that no, you are not human. You are something completely else.
I like the way you dig me out of my comfort zone. You certainly live up to your reputation.
Out of all the bosses to S rank, this one was the last one for me. She's just mean. I mean, nothing looks too terribly mean watching the video at this point, but damn, this lady was mean. I really don't like doing the perfect parries in this game. They make everything way longer than they should.
Fools, the lot of them.
And I'm not going to try and go for world records or anything, or even particularly impressive speedruns, because I don't have that kind of agility or dexterity in my fingertips. But I can tell you for sure that those perfect parries just eat up time like crazy.
Come on! Hit me with everything you've got! I studied your battle out there. I know your moves. I know what you're capable of. Come on, hit me with it.
The burst is notable in the fact that she's the only boss in the entire game that can flat out kill you in one hit if you're not careful.
Let's take this to the next level.
Usually you can see it coming, but sometimes it just doesn't feel fair. Especially if you get behind cover for a split second, and then the moment you're behind cover, she will fire her gun if she's trying to aim for you. But if you get behind cover for a split second, then get out of cover, whether you realize it or not, let's say the sniper bead ended up on cover off screen, but you just simply walked by it, and then all of a sudden you're exposed again. Yeah, there's a chance that you can get shot and you'll never see it coming. You're just minding your own business. Pardon me. You're just minding your own business and you're done. That's it. There's no more to say. That made her extremely difficult. Her desperation phase is also the most difficult in the game, in my opinion. Not only do you have to go through a particularly taxing set of footwork, but you also have a melee section to deal with at the very end of it. It's possible you can barely scrape through the desperation phase. And then get to the melee part, and she'll just take you out anyway. You gotta worry about dodging all their bullets again, and everything else. The burst is a pain in the ass. Aesthetically, she's pretty awesome, though. The Edge. Probably my second most difficult boss for myself. This guy hits like a Mack truck. He's just nothing but pain and misery. And he has no problems just making your life miserable.
You move well. You're reading me quite quickly.
All things considered, I felt like his fight, though, was extremely well done. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. I especially love this part right here where you're fighting on just a dock, and you know, it's just completely 2D. There's no more 3D movement going on here. It feels a lot like an old school fighting game.
Let it
Like something from the old Apple II or something. It's just, that's what it reminds me of. I can't remember the game name specifically, but
You have more strength.
it's just, this was just fun for me. Even if he made me so annoyed that I actually got up and left the house for a while. He was just a cool fight. The amount of damage he does with an ore is astounding. I'd hate to see what he could do with a proper sword. So I'm starting to think that his sword is dulled. I mean, otherwise he'd just take you completely in half in one swing. The beat. The weakest, most inexperienced guardian, jailer, hands down. She's not interested in fighting. She doesn't know how to fight. All she really does is run. That makes you feel kind of bad for her.
To let you go out? That is great.
I mean, she's doing her best. It's just not good enough.
Who are you really? Why are you here? Why are you doing this?
You notice that the writer doesn't hesitate at all when it comes time to kill her. She's the only one that, in a way, begged for her life. Said, please, more or less, don't do this.
I wanted to be here. Where else would
And
I be? Here is
your
where
guy
I can
just-
make the difference.
destroys her. The writer just destroys her outright. No emotions, man. It's pretty hard to watch. But at the same time, if you've already come this far, there's not
Yes.
really anywhere else to go. She is the last key to your dungeon, to your prison. I mean,
I look at you and I don't understand. We're so alike.
you've already killed 8 other jailers. What's the ninth one? What I find curious is that falling doesn't actually count as a hit. So, I'm not sure what that's about, but...
You can't go out there. Don't you understand? If you, our world withers and dies. You are the end. You are a monster!
And all that does is leave the last boss. The star. Depending on how you play this game, you may not even fight the star. If you want the good ending, if you will, I suppose you would. And finally, the star. If I felt like the scale didn't really fit in the game, kind of like as filler, this fight is so far divorced from anything else in the game, it doesn't even feel like it should be part of the game, in a way. At least, that's the way I feel about it. It's an extremely challenging fight, but it is also probably the most predictable out of any of the fights in the entire game. It's just a matter of learning the steps. Kind of reminds me of a different game, actually. There's a Primal in Final Fantasy XIV. His name is Titan. Titan is an asshole. He's probably one of the most static primals in 2.0 of the MMO Final Fantasy XIV, but he's also one of the hardest. His steps were long and very unforgiving. And while this definitely doesn't have the same kind of challenge as what Titan was all about, being that, you know, you're responsible for your actions completely in this game, whereas you have 7 other people that can potentially cock it up for you in Final Fantasy XIV, it still feels very reminiscent nonetheless. Lots of crap to watch out for, but very, very stable and static. Once you get the star's pattern down, you've got the fight down. You're done, you win.
For them, you will remain a stranger, a danger. Why is their world worth more than ours? You have traits I have never seen in any of us.
Overall, I am extremely happy to have found this game and have been able to play it. I do realize that it's been out for a while, about a year now, but it's new to me, and it was great. 20 bucks for this? Fantastic. I mean, this scratched an itch I didn't even know I had. So, to the game bakers, thank you. this has been an absolute pleasure to play. And I sincerely hope that they do something else. Maybe in this vein, maybe not, but this was a great game.
Will you destroy us to save this world that
And,
is not yours?
I think that about does it for this video.
Disappointed in you,
So, thank you for getting through this with me, and I hope you enjoyed watching the bosses just get a total thrashing. Sure, I might not be the fastest, but compared to what I was going through, it sure is a heck of a lot faster than my previous performance. So, again, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.
How can you be so defective? You are a traitor. You leave us no choice, Ryder. We will annihilate